What's up, guys? Welcome back. I'm going to show you guys how I get sharp images. I have been asked, like, how do I upload sharp images on social media, my website, just in general for any like web internet sharing. And I'm going to take you guys into Photoshop, Lightroom, and also into your own camera settings to figure out ways to make sure your photos are sharp and just staying crispy on the gram or on Twitter or wherever you might pull up. Disclaimer here, I personally shoot with the Nikon. I'm going to show you guys how to do the settings on Nikon camera system. As far as Canon, you guys have the same exact option. I just won't be able to show you how to get to it, but it will be in the same family somewhere when you go looking for it. So just a disclaimer to let you guys know, like, I don't have a Canon camera. I don't shoot Canon, I shoot Nikon. So we're gonna use Nikon to show you the example today. But other than that, I'm gonna show you guys Lightroom settings, and I'm gonna show you Photoshop settings, how I save the images, how I make them sharp physically, without disrupting the image and making it look crazy. These images will be ready for print. If you guys have seen my prints, you know that they come out hella crispy. Look at Shay, like, she's crispy. Why should you be making your photos sharper? I personally love to have sharp images just because they print well. They look good when you print. They look good on the internet when you are posting. A lot of these social sites condense photos and make them smaller. And so to find my way around the numbers and all those like tricky things of sizing and dimension and all that craziness, I just make my photos a little bit sharper and they show up really good in feed. So I'm going to show you guys the different tricks that I use to make these images look crispy online. Stay tuned. Alright guys, welcome to Photoshop. We're going to start here in Camera Raw with the first sequence of sharpening images. This is a photo of Tay for Bolden. She did so good. This was her first shoot and she freaking killed it. But I'm going to zoom in and show you guys how it's not a lot of texture in this image. I shot this with the 50mm lens, 1.8. You could see everything here. So yeah, it's gonna give me a soft look, which I was going for. I like that like soft vibe, but I'm gonna show you some of the settings that I tamper with that give me really sharp results. So if you go over to the right, and I want to show you guys what not to do. Sharpening with these tools, which I used to do back in the day, but it does not, it kind of disrupts the image, destructs the image ultimately in the end. And I realized that like around 2017, when I was like printing images and like just needing them to like for other things, and I was like, man, none of my images are really coming out good when I print, or when I do print, they look a little pixelated and dusty. So I recommend using texture, which 2019 Photoshop has texture, and as you can see, it adds so much sharpening to the image. So that's like, so here's before, well, that's before, and then here's after. So that's like a lot of texture added. And then another way to add texture would be clarity, but the thing about clarity that I don't like is it adds shadows. So I don't really tamper with clarity too much. I kind of stick with the texture, and I'm going to show you guys dehaze. So dehaze is going to add, I would recommend this if you're going to be working with color, because it tends to brighten the colors a little bit and also add a little bit of texture. So I did 40% of texture and about 16% plus of dehaze. And so that's all I would do in Camera Raw settings. And so I'm going to open up this file, and up after we've done the Camera Raw sharpening and you've duplicated your layer, then you're going to go to filter, and then you're going to scroll down to other, and there you're going to go to high pass. And so this is going to give you a very like non-destructive way of sharpening your image. I like to zoom in and make sure that the sharpness is looking normal. And I'll show you guys how in a second. So a good range for this would be between, I say, 6 and 9. So I wouldn't go above 9. But for this particular image, since I've already sharpened it, I'm going to take it down to like 8.2. And so then you'd hit OK. And then this layer is going to be this gray color, but you're going to go over to normal and you're going to make this either a soft layer or you can even do vivid. Any of these really work. I like to do vivid. And then, yeah, there you have it. I think that's the before and then that's the after. So this image is like super sharp now. And you would want to do this when you're done editing your image. Don't sharpen or add this like, you know, effect before you've done any skin editing or retouching. This image hasn't been touched yet, but I would definitely take this into my full editing process and then do this last, just because you want to make sure you're sharpening a finished, clean, polished image. Because if you start editing this now, like moving things around when it's sharper, it's more visible, if that makes any sense. Hopefully this particular part of the video helped you guys with sharpening. I think we're gonna head into Lightroom next, so stay tuned. Alright guys, let's head into Lightroom. We're just going to import the file. It's another photo of Tay. And what I normally do over here, again, is no destruction to the image. It is literally, this is a finished product of what I would do after all the edits. So just adding literally grain. And I know this sounds very simple and this is probably the easiest part of sharpening an image, but for some odd reason, adding grain in Lightroom, just simple like that, and you can go medium if you want to. I particularly don't like my grain to be noticeable. I like it to be very light. But I find that when you add this grain and you add it onto like Photoshop or Instagram or anywhere else, something about the grain and the megapixels makes the image appear sharper than it actually is without giving it that destruction. And what I normally save my image as, and I'll show you guys how I export. So what I normally do is save it as a TIFF file. Saving for TIFF files for like Instagram in particular has been better for me as far as it showing up looking really crisp and polished online. Resolution of 200 pixels per inch is good. You don't want to go any bigger than that because that's when it begins to distort or Instagram compresses it. Sharpen for screen is very important just because I think this is how people view it on the other end, like how you'll see it online. So I just always keep that checked and I don't check anything else. So then export. I'm gonna just close out of this and I'm gonna show you guys. I just want to pull it up and show. So this is the before and then that's the after. And you can see, if you look in this area here, you can see that it's definitely sharper. Very subtle way to make your images sharper. And as far as like saving, okay, now I'm going to show you guys how I make photos sharper in camera settings. Okay guys, so on your camera you're gonna go into your menu, and this should be for every camera. This is a Nikonz7, but I know that, you know, Canon, it's a little different, but it should be in your settings with the same kind of concept. So you're gonna go to your little camera icon and the set picture control. So here is a bunch of like settings that you normally have when you're shooting. So my standard is portrait that I use, and this is normally like the color or the white balance settings that they have in the camera. You're gonna go down to sharpen. You're gonna take it all the way up. I haven't had my sharpening up because I've been going for more of a dreamy look, but this is where you sharpen things. You can even do clarity, you can do contrast, you can do brightness and saturation, hue. I wouldn't personally tamper with any of this, but you can. And I wouldn't use clarity and I wouldn't choose to use anything else just because those things you can kind of deal with in Photoshop, but you can definitely have a sharper image by starting to do it in camera first. Okay guys, hopefully these 3 ways helped you guys to understand how to make your photos and your images sharper, whether you are shooting portraits, you are shooting yourself, product photography, whatever it may be. These are ways to make your photos more enticing and more sharp so that you get a clear, crisp image. So keep mastering your gaze and I'll be back with more videos.